Your friend in Central Illinois, WHOW.
Top of the morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. My guest on the Zoom today is Dr. Bill Hauter. He is our state rep. And Dr. Hauter, I catch you in the doctor garb today. I see you're at the office.
I'm not just playing it on TV. I'm actually working today. So I'm in a call room. So I'm sorry if you hear overhead paging somebody, but I'm actually in the hospital working today, and one of my partners is covering my cases until I get done with this. So Good morning.
Well,
good morning.
Yeah, thanks for doing this with us. And you did mention to me when we first started connecting is that you didn't give up your practice. That this is you're gonna stay in the field, and so kind of good to catch you at a time when you're there. I hope we're not taking you away from anything important, but
nope, I got coverage, and I think it's really important stuff to continue to work and to be in your community and have your livelihood and your identity in your community, and go down and represent the community, but always return. And what better way to stay involved in your area, in your district, in your community, by working and taking care of patients. And so the General Assembly for Representatives was supposed to be a citizen legislator. Mm-hmm. You're supposed to continue to work, and so many people down there now, and I think it's not good, but so many people are career politicians. They don't have anything else in their life that's all about politics, and that's not how it's supposed to be.
Well, it's you're in the community, you're making a difference, obviously, and so let's dive in today, Dr. Hauter. I know this is really I don't know how to describe it, but become really a hot topic, particularly downstate, is the homeschool legislation that would really, and I know you've talked about this with us in the past, and I'll let you rehash it a little bit better than I can, but basically, really, the state of Illinois coming over the top on homeschool families and putting a lot of burden and regulation on them. But this is getting a lot of pushback from the sounds of it. One, remind us about the legislation, and then we'll dive into, what's been the response to this. How about that?
Well, the legislation is just to regulate homeschooling in Illinois. Regulations there's pretty much no regulation right now, and that's a good thing in my mind. They legislate to regulate, to intimidate, and to essentially eliminate. And so what we've seen, this is how it works in Illinois. And so they started on this, let's legislate regulations, and then we can intimidate and basically subjugate homeschoolers. And what we see is just an outcry against it. I've never seen anything like it. The amount of witness slips that have been filed as opponents to this bill, the amount of people that showed up and were just passionate about why they homeschool, and that there doesn't need to be regulations on homeschoolers, that we should have homeschool freedom. It's really a parents' rights issue. I fully support them. It's a terrible bill. It would make criminals of parents who didn't fill out the forms properly. It's just an absolute ridiculous piece of legislation, and it's ordered by I believe it's ordered by the teachers' unions. The teachers' unions in Illinois are extremely powerful, and they don't like competition from their failing, public school. A lot of them are failing, and that's why so many people in Illinois have turned to homeschooling.
So a couple of the things that have come up in this argument from the pro side, the proponents of this legislation, is the fact that you would eliminate a lot of students that are homeschooled and and in abusive homes, and the reason they're homeschooled is to keep them, kind of in that cycle of abuse and those sorts of things. Respond to that, if you would, Dr. Hauter.
I just think, there's absolutely no evidence, and if you want to talk about it, let's talk about the failing public schools, the amount of kids that are lost, and they don't have any oversight or accountability over them in a public school. I think it's just an excuse that they're using, and they're conjuring up some case that they found that has nothing to do with the fact that they're homeschooled. It just has to do with that there was a situation of abuse, and we're totally against that. But stopping homeschooling is not the answer.
Well, and on the reverse side of that, if you were to look at the data that suggests abuse in the public school system. There's, I think I saw at one point 1 in 5 kids abused in the public education system in the United States. And, from what you could argue is that's actually on the low side, because you have a lot of kids that probably don't report it. Nothing gets done about it, those sorts of things. So there's abuse in the public education system as well.
And we see, I mean, there's so many reasons why they should be focusing on the public school and our public school education and all the failings and all the reasons why people are homeschooling. Why are they homeschooling? Not just from failures, but their teaching ideologies and the curriculum. You just talk about the sex ed curriculum that starts way too early, is way too in depth, and so people are not only rejecting that, but they're actively taking their kids out. And they pay property taxes just like everyone else, so they're paying a lot of money to not have their kids educated publicly, because they're so passionate about educating their kids in the right way. I see it, Seth, I just see it as, in my business, we have something called triage. And when triage happens, and if you have a mass casualty event, it's very important that you get the people that you can save, and the injuries and the people who have been, injured, that you can save them, and you don't have people that are beyond saving and people that don't need any, they can be triaged later, much later, because they have problems that are very minor. This is the problem with triage, again, in the legislation of Illinois. They are focusing on the well person, and they're bringing to us person who does not have any injuries, and we're not focusing on the public schools who have a lot of problems, extreme amount of problems, that we should be focusing on those people. So it's a matter of, again, of priorities. And when you're talking about priorities, you're talking about, just in my mind, is triaging our problems in Illinois. It's a failure of triage.
Dr. Bill Hauter, state rep, our guest on the Zoom today. It sounds like this is getting a lot of pushback, which is coming to the surprise of the bill's sponsors.
Yeah, it's amazing. I've never seen so many people down in the Capitol and at every committee meeting, and the witness slips. It's been a real great thing to see, as far as seeing the opponents of this bill get out there and make their voices heard. We love it. Down here, we feel outnumbered. We feel irrelevant a lot of the time. We feel like we're fighting, and there's nobody that really cares, and there's apathy out there. To have a bill like this that we are so against, and to have the people rally behind us, it's been exciting.
Well, so with that said, what is the latest on this, Dr. Hauter? Is it going to come up for a vote in this legislative cycle? Where does it stand right now?
They're having a lot of problems. They're having problems in their own caucus. I think they don't want this fight. They've seen how opposed people are to it. They've seen that it's not really needed, and so why have this fight? So in the deadline week last week, we expected it to come up. It passed through committee. It should have come up. Well, the sponsor got up on the House floor and basically tabled her bill for later in session, so missed the deadline. So we'll see. It's a little bit harder for them to pass it. They can still pass it, but they know that there's trouble. There's trouble with this bill. So we're really happy that it wasn't brought forward in deadline week, but we're going to stay vigilant to make sure that it's not brought up.
Well, we'll see where it goes, and like you said, there really has been a lot of outcry on this, and it feels like from all corners of the state, not just downstate, from what you were saying there.
Yeah, I mean, even the Black Caucus in the Illinois legislature has some members who are very opposed to it, because African American students have really parents have taken them out of their failing public schools. They're a lot of times unsafe public schools. And so we have a growing number of African American parents who are homeschooling their kids. So the Black Caucus has noticed that, and they've heard from their constituents. So that's another problem this bill has. They're getting pushback from their own caucus.
Interesting stuff. Anything else on that, Dr. Hauter, that we didn't touch on worth mentioning?
Well, we're going to keep pushing to make sure that they don't bring this up, and when they do, we're gonna make sure that we are out in force, and that we at least if it passes the House, we have another chance in the Senate, and I think it would have even more trouble in the Senate.
State Representative Dr. Bill Hauter, our guest on the Zoom. Dr. Hauter, let's break here. Come back with some more on the WHOW Morning Show.
WHOW.
Shane here from Highway 51 Exchange, just south of
Here-
Clinton. Let us
Are you
service your
hearing me all
lawn
right,
and garden
Tom?
equipment for spring with our quick turnaround and service specials for free pickup and delivery. Click our icon on DeWittDailyNews.com for details.
DeWittDailyNews.com is the area's leading local news source 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Get the latest local news, obituaries, police blotter, weather forecast, and more with no paywall. Head to DeWittDailyNews.com to get the local information you need to know.
Now there's one web portal for local agriculture radio programming in Central Illinois.
IllinoisFarmRadio.com.
Local farm programming streamed live and archived to hear anytime.
IllinoisFarmRadio.com.
Hear the morning and noon farm shows with local agriculture news and interviews.
IllinoisFarmRadio.com.
Plus, hear all of your favorite agriculture farm shows, including RFD Illinois, AgriTalk, RFD Today, and the Closing Market Report.
IllinoisFarmRadio.com.
It's agriculture grown locally, streamed live, and archived to hear anytime.
IllinoisFarmRadio.com.
A service of the Miller Media Group.
This is Seth Lawrence, News and Program Director for WHOW and WEZC. We take pride in being Clinton and Central Illinois' local radio stations each and every day, 7 days a week. What does local news mean? Here's a sample.
We're going to have, I guess, for lack of better terms, we'll call it a job fair. Anybody who's interested in corrections or 911 telecommunicator can show up.
The warm air just to our south and the cool and actually really cold Canadian air is not too far to the north. I mean, wind develops because of the temperature differences.
Beefing up where we can issue citations, daily citations if need be, on abandoned properties with abandoned vehicles.
You hear the local people that make the news every day, 7 days a week on the big 1520 AM, 92.3 FM, and 106.5 FM WHOW, and on your easy choice for soft hits, 95.9 FM WEZC.
Your friend in Central Illinois. WHOW.
Once again, good morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. My guest on the Zoom today, State Representative Dr. Bill Hauter, who we find in the doctor's garb here this morning, joining us from his practice there in Morton, correct?
I live in Morton, and I work in Peoria.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yep.
Gotcha. Very good. Well, again, Dr. Hauter, we appreciate you making time for us here this morning. We talked about the homeschool legislation and the impacts it's having. One piece of legislation I'd love to get your input on, Dr. Hauter, is one thing that's coming up in education circles on my show recently is this proposed cell phone ban bill. There are pockets of schools that have gone to, whether it's cell phone bans, they've taken up their own rules on how to handle these things in their schools. This would just kind of blanket it statewide and make it a mandatory thing. What say you on this and its prospects?
Well, I kind of have two minds on this. I think it's probably good to not have your cell phones in your classroom at all. But I hate to make it a state law. I think that that's another example where we need local control and local school districts, that know their schools and know their situations, make their own rules on stuff like this. So, I think it's probably good to not have phones in school, probably better for learning and distractions. But again, I'm a local control guy, and I just think this is something this is for school boards, for individual administrations of schools to decide what their rules are in school are going to be.
Well, and it just, I've been talking with superintendents and principals and educators for, a decade plus now. And it's the theme even 10 years ago was the deterioration of local control, the state coming in over the top. I think you said it best. It's a good idea. That doesn't mean the state needs to step in and mandate it for every school district.
Absolutely. And we saw this during COVID, and it kind of took off on steroids. As we tried to have local controls for our school opening, local controls for mandates on different vaccinations and masking and different things. And the state came in, and they do this so often with everything, really. They come in and they say, we're going to decide, we're going to make the rules for the whole state. And as you know, this is a very diverse state. And what works in Chicago, which is very little works in Chicago, definitely doesn't work blanket for downstate Illinois. And we run our communities better. We're more fiscally responsible. We're safer. Our schools are better. There's so many things that we don't need their advice on how to run our schools and our communities and our counties and our municipalities. They could learn from us. And this is another way that they're saying, we know better, and we're going to make a rule statewide. And I just am opposed to that.
I had this conversation with a superintendent, very small school district in Piatt County, and we got done with the whole cell phone thing. And I said, what else is the state of Illinois, what's catching your eye in Springfield? And she told me that the state of Illinois the legislature is considering allowing high school athletes to play travel ball in the middle of their high school sports seasons. And my reaction was, when the state of Illinois runs out of things to legislate, by God, they're going to find something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what the story of my life down here in Springfield. It's just like, is this really a priority? We have so many, again, talking about triage and finding what we need to, the problems that we need to address are not addressed. And the problems that don't need addressed, that aren't problems, like homeschooling or this issue of cell phones or even mascots, which we can talk about.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They address those because they're easy, and they win some award back in their district for virtue signaling on all the problems we have in Illinois, whether it be pension liabilities, whether it be the budget deficit that's coming up that we have to address, whether it be the property tax reform, the population loss, the crime, on and on, are not addressed. And we need to do correct triage in the state of Illinois.
Well, I had one superintendent tell me, we had started discussing this off the air, but they said, this is they felt this was more of a Governor Pritzker-led initiative, where the bill is just very vague, not well written, which is probably a lot of things at the legislative level, which I've heard. But anyways, it's not well written. It's very vague, and it's really just something for him to campaign on at the national level.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how big of an issue it is, but it's kind of an easy bill for him, a cell phone ban, because, like I said, even conservatives would probably say, yeah, probably a good idea. But again, we have a different worldview on what we should be addressing at a statewide level versus local control.
Tell me about this mascot legislation. This is not getting a lot of attraction, but I think it's going to impact many school districts in central Illinois. How about this, Dr. Hauter?
So they passed a bill through the House. We'll see where it goes in the Senate. Probably will be law, but on a certain time frame, I think it's 3 to 5 years, you have to, basically all Indian mascots will be banned. And anything that has a marginalized group or a disability will be as a mascot will be banned. So again, we're looking at different worldviews. They look at the Indian mascots as an insult and a caricature and a demeaning symbol. And many of us see it as a source of pride in our heritage, a source of community pride, and a remembrance of history and where we came from. I mean, just look at the Blackhawks in Chicago. Would anybody say that's demeaning to that tribe? Look at Fighting Illini. And I know they removed the chief, and I was against that as well. But We have a source of pride in our Indian tribes, and it's not demeaning. I just don't understand why we have to continually address this in some group who sees it as an insult. And in fact, even in their own communities, there's a variety of opinion on that issue. So again,
It's
we
more
just look
taking
at
away.
things
It's more
differently.
taking away of the local control side. You know.
Yep. Yep. It's taking away the control from the communities who there's not an outcry in the communities to, I think in my district, in our district, the DMAC Braves, or they go by the Chiefs. There's nothing that their symbol is an arrowhead. All that's a remembrance of our Indian heritage, and in no way would it be an insult. In fact, there's so much pride in that symbol, in that community, but yet the state is going to say you have to that's going to be banned and not allowed, and you're going to have to pick a different mascot, and there's cost to that too. If you're going to change your stationery, your letterhead, your flags, your all your insignias, everything has to be changed. That's an unfunded mandate from the state to change everything in your school district. So that's expensive.
A point well made there at the end. I agreed with that. Another unfunded mandate upon school districts and taxpayers. So, yeah, very good. Well, Dr. Hauter, I hate to do this to you, my friend. I got to let you go for the day. Thanks for taking time with us, and best to you and yours. Yeah, happy Easter to you. That is Dr. Bill Hauter, State Representative, our guest on the Zoom this morning. The morning show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton.
WHOW.
Thank you, sir.